Good evening, everybody. Welcome to season 2, episode 3 of the Small Talk podcast here on this Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, here in Canada, where I am. And today it's about -5 Celsius, and we're actually getting some winter now that it's spring. I'm excited about tonight's show. I'm going to have my co host, Marlene Sharp, come on in just a minute. And looking forward to our guest tonight. And I'm going to bring on my co-host Marlene Sharp, and it should be a very interesting show tonight. Good evening, Marlene. How are
Oh,
you?
good evening. Good evening to you too. Although I must say, it's probably a better evening here than what you're having. We we are spoiled in LA with 76 degrees here in the San Fernando Valley. So
That's
I'm so
perfect.
sorry to hear about your 5 below. Yikes.
That's okay. I have my winter gear and I have all my stuff. I like my four seasons, but I do like the 70s, and I know baseball's coming soon. So we're going to get our warm weather here probably in the next, I would say, in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, good. Good. If you
Definitely.
say
So,
so, I'll believe it.
but I'm excited for tonight's guest. And did you want to introduce her guest for her third episode for tonight?
Oh yes, yes. This is my third episode here with Chris. So thank you, Chris, for inviting me to be your co-host. And tonight we do have a very special guest. He's here in my neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley. His name is Eddie Braun, Edward Braun, also Eddie Braun. He is an esteemed attorney here in Los Angeles, and his expertise is personal injury, but he knows a lot about various legal topics, and he has an excellent sense of humor. So he is not your traditional lawyer. He's not what you're going to expect. So we'll have a good time.
Okay, before we bring Eddie on, quickly, how did you meet or contact him?
I met him through my neighbor. So I have a neighbor whose name is Leonato, and hello to Leonato if he is watching. And Leonato has a sweet little dog named Lily, who is friends with my dog Blanche. So Lily and Blanche are the reason that Leonato know each other and I know each other. So he was the one who made the introduction, and that's how I know Eddie. And Eddie is the dog father of a sweet doodle dog named Mishka. I have not met Mishka in person, but Mishka is a handsome devil from what I see in all the photos. So all dog lovers here.
Absolutely. And we're going to bring on our guest tonight. Good evening, Eddie. How are you?
Good evening. Very good. Thank you very much.
Hi
Thank you
Eddie,
so much for coming
welcome.
on.
Thank you. But thank you for having me.
How's the weather your way? I take it you're in Los Angeles or Sherman Oaks in
Another
that area.
suburb of Los Angeles, and the weather is cannot be better for February for March weather. So wonderful weather. Probably low 70s or high 60s. Didn't check it out, but very pleasant.
So how
Yeah.
was your day today?
Days busy as usual, but exciting. A lot of exciting stuff and interesting cases and um, people we help. So it's always nice.
Yes, Eddie and I are fairly closely in close proximity in terms of neighborhood, but the temperature does vary a bit in the San Fernando Valley from block to block. So there's probably is like a 5 or 10 degree difference. But I would love to get into Eddie's work in some of those interesting cases. My dog Blanche is super excited too. She heard that maybe Mishka would make a cameo. Not sure if that's a rumor or not, but anyway, Blanche is prepared. And as you listeners might have guessed, since Eddie is in Hollywood slash Los Angeles, he's in close proximity to the entertainment industry. So on occasion, his personal injury practice intersects with entertainment. That's why we're calling this episode Your Big Break, because I love puns. And it really does make sense in terms of Eddie and his business and the ways that he deals with potential clients. So, Eddie, maybe you could just give a little more of an intro about your practice, and also tell us about third-party liability, which is one of your specialties.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So first about myself, I'm different than many other attorneys in this industry. I came to become an attorney later in life, and became an attorney after being for over 20 years in the healthcare industry and in the insurance industry. So I've been around working with insurances in the healthcare industry, especially, and those two experiences enhance my ability to achieve better results for my clients and the personal injury legal aspect of it. So we mostly work in personal injury cases, which are people that get hurt either on car accidents or slip and falls, or sometimes intentional torts. Those means that someone intentionally hurt someone else, and we can go after them civilly on civil court, unlike criminal court. And but I know a lot of other law aspects. One of my specialties, which I don't practice, but I'm very familiar with, is workers' compensation, and especially California workers' compensation, which is very complex and involved. And I mentioned that specifically because this will connect to our conversation about the entertainment industry and various injuries. About third-party liability, you asked me about third-party liability. Third-party liability means that there is another person, outside person, that is at fault for someone else's injury. California is at fault state in regards to personal injury cases. It means that whoever is at fault for a car accident, whoever is at fault for someone else's injury as a result of a dog bite or as a result of a slip and fall, that person, that organization will be the one to pay for the compensation, for property damage compensation, as well as personal injury for bodily compensation. On the other aspect, there is something called, as I said before, the workers' compensation. And in California, workers' compensation is non-fault system. It's a little bit confusing, but the way it works in workers' comp is doesn't matter what, if you get hurt at work, you are covered by the workers' comp insurance. So third-party liability comes in play whenever there is a person that got injured while at work, and there is another outside person outside of the work environment that may be at fault for that injury. So if we go into that example of entertainment industry, if there is a person that got hurt while shooting a scene and on the streets of LA, and he got hurt because someone, let's say, drove a car into that set and hurt someone, that person, that actor, that's stuntman, whoever is working on the set that got hurt, will be automatically covered by the workers' comp insurance, which covers that production. However, they can also go after the actual person that at fault for the accident. So that the other driver. So the other driver is called the third party. It can be a person, it can be a company, it can be a public entity. So if that injury is caused not because of car accident, but because of a faulty street lights or faulty pavement and so on, then the third party liability is the city, unlike individual person. And
that's so interesting, Eddie. What you said just now about the car accident, it reminds me of the case of the actress Anne Heche. Do you remember that case from a couple of years ago? It didn't happen on a set, but she wasn't working at the time, but she crashed into someone's home, And I can't remember if she was coming from a set or going to a set, but no one was hurt in the moment, but there was PTSD involved with the person who was at home during the accident.
So there are different legal nuances here that I don't want to go too much into them, but very shortly, coming and going rule, which applies to workers' compensation, means that the person that going on the way to home or to work, or I'm sorry, a person that is on the way to work or a person that is on the way back from work to home, they are not considered to be working, and there are different, of course, exemptions to that, like many other aspects in law. So I don't really remember that case specifically, but in general, the idea is if it will be found that the person that had an accident was actually working or was on the clock, it will be picked up and covered by workers' compensation. But then there will be also her insurance will be involved as another source of compensation for the injuries, for the, as you mentioned, PTSD or damage to the property of the property that she crashed into. So one person cannot get compensated double. There's no double dipping, as it's called. They cannot get paid both from workers' comp and from third-party insurance, like car insurance or any other liability insurance. But those insurances will decide which part each of them will be responsible for.
Interesting. I should correct what I said about the Anne Heche case. She actually died from her injuries, but it happened, I think, a few days later. But luckily, no one else was killed. There was definitely a case of PTSD with the woman who was in the home when it got hit, and so yeah, that was an unfortunate situation, to say the least. But
well, I can add to that aspect without remembering the case specifically, is that person to which whoever was at the house at the time of the accident, so she entitled to property damage, which is compensation for her house being damaged. Mm-hmm. She's entitled to personal injuries, and part of personal injuries can be also psychological injuries, like mm-hmm. in the PTSD, and the driver's insurance, in the hopes that they have proper insurance, will be able to cover for those type of injuries. People that get hurt under personal injury cases, they're entitled to economical damages, which is actual money expended on either medical care or other expenses related to the accident. And also they will be entitled to compensation for pain and suffering, which are non-economical damages, are those for inconvenience, the pain, again, emotional pain or distress. All of those aspects can be calculated as well as part of for overall compensation.
Eddie, the next question I would like to ask, we're going to rotate questions with Marlene and myself. I wanted to ask you, does the Rust film accident shooting qualify as a party liability case? And besides the Alex Baldwin factor, are there other unique aspects of this as a civil case, criminal case?
Okay. So definitely there is, as everyone knows, originally both Alec Baldwin and I think Gutierrez Reed, the armor person, whoever was armory, both of them were charged, I think, criminally. And
yes.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alec Baldwin's criminal case originally was put aside, and Hannah was actually convicted for, I think it was
manslaughter, or like second degree manslaughter, maybe.
Manslaughter, right. Okay, so it's basically to do that. It's to do with more with that she was gross negligent, and that for they convicted her for that criminal act. So criminal courts are separate. and criminal courts are pursued by the district attorneys, by the state, and I am sure that all parties involved, all injured parties involved in this case, will also pursue civil litigation. So civil litigation, you don't get jail time, you get money compensation. So I'm sure that the family of the deceased and family of the other injured, or the person that got injured, they will pursue both Alec Baldwin and Hannah for civil litigation. And very important to mention that unlike in a criminal case, the burden of proof on civil courts are much lower, and as such, they will be able to receive compensation for damages incurred, regardless if the person was convicted in criminal court or not. Similar, good example of that is, and again, it's not something usually people like to go into politics, but with Trump's case of the alleged rape. So there was no criminal case, so we can say he was cleared from criminal behavior, but he was convicted in the civil court. And this is mainly because the burden of proof, which is much lower, requires less evidence and less facts to determine the liability. So back to the last case. Here again, like as mentioned earlier, the issue of workers' compensation goes into effect as well, and third-party liabilities it depends on the capacity that apologize, the phone here. The capacity in which Alec Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez worked at that set. So if they were separate entities, separate companies, because I know Alec Baldwin was a producer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so if he came in as a representative of an entity of its own, they can go after the company, his company, for compensation for the damages caused to the person that died or the person that got injured. And it, again, as I said before, regardless of the final results of the criminal case.
Eddie, I wanted to ask you this. In majority of the cases, do you find more go to civil litigation than criminal trial, or do you find it's still more in favor of criminal instead of the civil?
So those two are totally different laws and different aspects of the law. Meaning, private attorneys don't choose if to file criminal cases. This is the state and the district attorney are the only ones that can sue someone criminally. And they usually go for can be both money damages compensations and other punitive penalties like prison or probation or whatever. Civil courts, we go only after money. There's no other there's injunctions and other issues, but mostly the main punishment is money.
I see. In the U.S., that's so, but in other countries, it's a little different, right? In other, well, I guess there's not one rule that applies to everybody in every country, but there are.
Yeah, I apologize. Mostly it will be the same.
Okay.
The most Western countries will have similar type of law. Our law is all English-based law, and which is, although there are some differences, those two categories will probably work the same way. So criminally charges will be brought up by the government, which is the district attorney in our case, or maybe there's other authorities, but they're part of the government. And the government is bringing those charges against the we'll call them criminals, or the people that are accused to be of a crime, on behalf of the public. And on civil cases, is private attorneys will bring up the lawsuit on behalf of their clients against the wrongdoers. It can be negligence. It can be other aspects of civil law.
Marlene, you want to ask him the next question? I've got it ready to go.
Yes. So what kinds of accidents, besides, we talked about car accidents and other miscellaneous accidents that could happen on a film set, what other kinds of things qualify as personal injury? And does it vary state to state or country to country, or is it pretty uniform?
It's definitely, I will start with your end of the question. It definitely varies from state to state, and I'm sure also country to country, as it relates to personal injuries. Big difference in state of California, unlike other states, which I said before, is the fault system. So some states in the United States are also non-fault systems, and therefore if it's a car accident, different both parties may be on the hook of paying for some expenses resulting from the injuries. In California specifically, it's usually the party at fault is the one that will pick up the bill, we can say, the tab on those compensations. Now, you asked me also about what type of injuries. Personal injuries are any type of an injury that caused some kind of a bodily injury, some kind of a personal injury. It can be physical or mental, as mentioned before, and those injuries can be result of various aspects of someone else's negligence, different levels of negligence, or someone else's accidental acts. And it can be, as I said before, of course, a car accident, but it can be also as a slip and fall, a trip and fall. A person walks into a shopping center, and the way the stairs were designed were defective, and it caused the person to trip, fall, break his leg. Or public entity situation, the pavement is significantly damaged. There's a big hole which is hidden by some grass, and it's not easy to be seen. The city has been notified by the neighbors that there is a problem there, and the city didn't do anything. Someone walks by, doesn't see that there is a big hole, trips into or falls into the hole, breaks a leg. This is another personal injury situation. Dog bites, someone, or any kind of animal
attack, an animal attack or
attack. It can be, there is in different states or a different region in which within California, it can be someone has got injured by someone else's horse or a cow. There are various rules for that. In California, it's very simple. It's called strict liability. Means that any person that is injured by someone else's animal or dog bite, in this case specifically, the dog owner will be responsible, regardless if the dog owner knew that his dog was able to do that, if he has a propensity of biting or not. So it's called strict liability. Other states have different type of rules which will require to prove that the animal has a part of their character is to be more aggressive, and the owner should have taken higher precautions to avoid someone else's injury. Other personal injuries can be intentional torts. Intentional torts is someone punched someone else in the face.
Oh yeah.
Here it can be both criminal and also civil. So if someone punches someone else in the face, they can be liable criminally for assault and battery, but they also can be liable civilly for assault and battery and for any other damages caused to the person. And if the state can't bring charges against that person for that assault and battery, or they can decide not to bring those charges, but civilly we can pursue again after the person himself, or after the employer if that person was working at the time of the physical attack. And that's
oh, go ahead.
I just said those just a few of the main aspects of personal injury situation.
A lot of aspects.
I wanted to ask you, Eddie, have you thought in the future, maybe when you're retired, of writing a book about your career as a lawyer and some of the stuff you've seen?
Definitely, it's possible. I was a possibility. We'll consider that when we come to this crossroad.
Well, one day we'll interview you about your book.
Possibly, yeah.
Definitely. Before we get to some more questions, is it okay if I play your love story clip from your YouTube channel? And I subscribe, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And then we'll get back to some more questions. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. Just let me know if you can hear the video audio okay. Give me 1 sec.
Well, dinner was incredible. This place is amazing. Food was fantastic. But I am dying to know how you two lovebirds met.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, sweetie. It sounds better when you tell me.
Okay, babe. Well, I was driving on the way to work trying to catch up with my project. I had a deadline to meet. And then when I looked up, I saw him on the middle of the street. He looked so adorable. And guess what? Bam, I hit him.
Oh, I took a pretty bad spill. I blacked out for a couple of minutes. My leg was pretty mangled, but when I woke up, I thought I was dead because I saw an angel. That's when I know I met
The love of my life.
What happened next?
6 months later, when I got out of the hospital, the first thing I did was I surprised her at her house.
I didn't remember who he was, but also I have never been in a limousine before. We took a private jet to Milano, and that's where I said, yes.
Gorgeous. Must have cost a fortune.
My man is rich.
Rich? No. My attorney was able to get me a huge settlement from the accident. It helped me get back on my feet, afford a good life, and meet the love of my life.
You used the money from my accident to pay all this?
Your accident? You hit me.
I wish I never met you.
I wish I never met you. I'd be able to walk.
Watch me walk.
Our first fight.
Eddie has an excellent sense of humor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thoughts, Eddie, on that video, and how did it come about?
So it was designed and purpose to elicit some smiles. Of course, as it's pretty obvious, everything is exaggerated. From the way she was driving when holding the phone with both hands, not enough to drive with the phone at all, but in this situation, the way she was driving on the phone and the entire situation is purposefully exaggerated to elicit smile and make a more of a cheerful view of usually unpleasant situations of car accidents.
Hey, Eddie, I wanted to ask you this. I know in Ontario, here in Canada, near Toronto, we have strict distracted driving laws and fines and all that. What is it like out in California for driving, and are you still allowed to text and drive and be distracted? Or do you guys have similar laws like we do here?
I will assume it's a very similar laws. California is known to be very conservative state on aspects of laws such as those for safety reasons. So of course everyone must be seat belted. Everyone is not allowed to use any handheld devices for phone or any other communication, and everyone we're supposed to have liability insurance. said all that doesn't mean that people follow the rules. So
That's
of course,
right.
they get stopped by police, they get a ticket, but unfortunately, many people ignore the risks and take the quick look at their cell phone and can get lost into it while looking at their text or TikToks or whatever, and get into very dangerous situations.
Do you get a fair amount of cases from distracted driving?
Yes. Very often, it's pretty obvious to us when we get a case and we research the scenario of how the accident happened. It is pretty clear to us, even though we may not have initially the evidence, it's pretty clear that the person was distracted. And I can say 95% of the times the distraction is due to cell phones.
Oh my goodness, 95% of the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That it's surprising, but not surprising.
I think it's just as bad as drinking and driving.
Oh yeah.
And we have strict laws here, but it doesn't stop people from doing stupid things, and it's just dangerous.
Yeah, I don't have the statistics with me, but there are research that it was established to show that people driving and getting distracted by cell phone texting and so on are probably even at the same level or worse level as if they've been driving impaired due to alcohol or other illicit drugs.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. So distracted driving has been good for your business, is what you're saying, Eddie.
Yeah, in general, it is this causes of accident like those are this is what make my practice and many other attorneys in our state busy.
Yeah.
Some believe that with the automation of the driving, so the more automated drivers or self-driving vehicles will be around, some of those distractions will be eliminated, and some other human errors will be eliminated. But of course, we in this industry believe that we're gonna still have. I believe that we're gonna still have work, because, like every other industry or any other situation, new problems and new opportunities will arise. When one problem is solved, other problems are created.
Sure. Sure.
Eddie, I wanted to ask you this as well. I know I'm in Canada, but I wanted to ask you this. We've got more and more self-driving cars out there. Let's say somebody's in one of those cars. They decide to take a snooze and something happens with the vehicle. Are they still liable if they're not driving the car technically and it's self-driving?
So yes, they are liable because they are supposed to be awake and pay attention to the road. And again, I'm not sure the laws will develop and will be changed as technology advances. Usually, in the society, or the law aspect is usually lagging behind the technology, but those cases, as cases arise, the law will be developed to be more clear and concise. But at this point, the driver is still the one responsible for anything happens in the car. Yeah. You cannot sue a car. You can sue the.
Would the car manufacturer be liable too in this case?
Potentially, yes. But if it's determined that there is a defect that no one could have foreseen that something like that can happen, potentially there is an option like that. But it all depends, because if the manufacturer specifically indicated that they're not allowing the driver not to pay attention, meaning they specifically indicated that although the car can operate mostly on its own, the driver is required to be the one overseeing everything, and the driver falls asleep, I'm sure that they will be somewhat off the hook. But again, all of those things will be decided case by case, on a case by case situation.
Yes. People aren't allowed just to drive or have a driverless car willy-nilly, right? I mean, you're not supposed to do that anyway around here.
The current pilot programs, I think it's allowed in San Francisco, maybe in a couple of other areas in other states, in which the city allows some of those cars to drive on their own without a driver, and to test that. And I know there are some issues and accidents that occur. So of course, if there is no person in that vehicle, I assume the owner of the vehicle is the one who will be responsible for the damages. In this case, the company, or because I assume that those vehicles are mostly operational, operate as businesses, either delivering people or delivering products to other people. So as a company, they'll probably bear the responsibility on damages to whoever they cause the injuries.
I wanted to ask you guys both this. What are your thoughts on all-electric vehicles? We have them here, and there seems to still be problems with them. The hybrids seem to be better than the all-electric, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on those vehicles.
So electric vehicles, it's the amazing idea, big advances in that industry, and they're wonderful cars, but there's a lot of problems that still need to be resolved. Mileage, how far those cars can go without getting recharged is an issue. Availability of recharging stations. Other aspects of, like, I'm sure in Canada, I'm sure there's issues with stalled cars due to weather.
Yeah.
Lately, I heard that in the United States, the cold states had some issues with cold weather causing batteries to malfunction and stall the cars. All of those aspects, I'm sure it will be worked out as they come up, and things will get better. But we're not there yet. So in California, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in California, there's probably more cars than people. So every person has at least one car in the house. In East Coast, in Los Angeles, I'm sure it's in some aspects in Canada.
Oh yeah, Toronto is crazy.
And they may have no cars, or they may have one household car. In California, it's a car per person, or at least one car.
1.5 cars.
So on that aspect, many households will have will have some cars electrical, some cars gas operated or gasoline operated, and those cars are improving and getting much better as fast as possible, faster and faster. But I think California, the governor, there's signed up a law that requires all manufacturers of automobile manufacturers to sell only electrical cars by the year 2030. I don't know.
Oh yes, I think that's right. Yeah.
Work out or not, but this is the goal that everyone is trying to achieve.
Eddie, do you have time for 5 more minutes and a couple more questions?
Yeah, I'm good. No problem. I'm enjoying.
Since I've been asking some questions off my head, Marlene, I'm going to let you ask Eddie this one.
Oh, thanks. Well, this is my favorite question. I must admit, have you been involved with any high-profile wrongful death cases, Eddie? And are you allowed to discuss any of them?
So usually most of the cases that if we settle them and they didn't go to actual court, there is usually a confidential agreement that we sign, and we are not discussing those. I didn't have any myself. I didn't have any high-profile wrongful death cases that went to court and that became publicized, even though I've been involved in some of those type of cases. Just for the listeners that whoever not familiar what it means, wrongful death means that there is a death that occurred due to the fault of someone else. So it can be a death as a result of a car accident, death as a result of other injury, and the family usually entitled to some money compensation to compensate for the death of the loved ones. And it goes back to what we said, what I discussed earlier. In the civil law, there is no, it's a separate, and the only punishment is the financial aspect of it. So there's no criminal aspect of in the civil law. And if there's a wrongful death due to a negligence, there will be a civil litigation which will end with some kind of money compensation. And if the state believes that there was some kind of a violation of law, they may pursue separately criminal charges. Quick example is drunk driving. So if a person was drunk while he caused an accident, and in that accident someone died, this is a serious felony, and then the person can be charged criminally in addition to civil litigation.
I'm thinking of the O.J. Simpson case where he was acquitted in the criminal matter, but then he was found guilty in the wrongful death case. But I think that the Goldman family and the family of Nicole Brown Simpson, I don't think either family received money, or if they did, it was very little amount, even though the award was quite substantial. And
I can, if you don't mind, I will talk about that
quickly. Oh yeah.
So here we have two different aspects that we can talk about. First of all, about and something we mentioned earlier, how it happened that the person that O.J. Simpson was cleared of no wrongdoing on the criminal trial, and it was cleared on the criminal trial, and he was convicted on civil lawsuit. So again, it's to do with the level of burden of proof. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard that's required on a criminal case.
Right.
And, the jury were, in order to convict someone for any type of death-causing act, can be manslaughter or can be a murder and so on, they need to be sure without reasonable doubt that the person in front of them is the one that actually did the crime. If they cannot be sure without beyond reasonable doubt that this is the person, then they can convict them for that crime. Civil court with that preponderance of evidence. So basically, if the evidence shows more reasonably than not that the person is at fault, he can be convicted in civil cases. So the civil jury convicted O.J. in civil court because their burden of proof was much smaller than in criminal court. Now, the other aspect is something that I tell my clients very often, because very often clients that get hurt one way or another, they want revenge. They want to punish the other party at fault, and they want to sue them personally in civil court. And I always tell them that, yes, even if your case is clear and you can win in civil court, for sure, it does not mean you'll be able to collect the damages you have been awarded. So if a person doesn't have anything that we can take financially from that person, then that judgment becomes moot, or in this situation more of useless, because there is nothing we can do. Try to garnish some wages, and there are restrictions for that. Taking someone's home, it's also not so simple, because every state has restrictions, because no one wants to leave the other person homeless, for example. So there are restrictions on how much you can go after personal property. At the case of O.J. Simpson, by the time he finished, even though he was a wealthy person because of his career in the entertainment industry, in the sports industry, By the time he finished with this criminal case, he basically was bankrupt.
Right.
Therefore, and if he had some assets, he probably was able to hide them somehow, and it's very hard to retrieve those assets in order to justify, or in order to fulfill the judgment.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think also his NFL pension was protected. That was one of the things that was restricted, that
Right.
couldn't be touched.
Also restricted, correct? Yes.
Eddie, I wanted to ask you this as a lawyer. Obviously, you're seeing so many cases nowadays. I just saw one. I don't know if it was in Canada, but somebody suing a man suing a woman because she friend zoned him. Have you seen a lot more frivolous cases? And have you ever had a case where you just told the client, I can't represent you?
Of course. We attorneys do this very often. On a daily basis, we tell clients, I'm sorry, I cannot represent you. And sometimes the clients understand because we take the time to explain why we cannot represent them. And besides the aspects of conflict here, specifically to your question, is about because we believe that this is not a good case, or they don't have a good case. And it's very often that we will tell clients that we don't see a reason to file a lawsuit here or to represent them on that claim. And sometimes, as I said before, they are understanding, and sometimes they're getting upset. So, I wasted whatever time talking to you, and you don't want to take my case. So, and especially in the personal injury law, most of the attorneys will work on contingency fee, means so that they don't charge money for their time. They will charge a percentage of the final settlement that they can achieve to the client. So it also means that if we don't get a settlement, we don't get paid.
That's rough. That's rough.
Up to us to decide if we want to take this case, because no one wants to work for free. And as much as the client feels that they're entitled to damages from the party at fault, does not always mean that it's possible to do that, to get that. So if a party said before, if a party does not have insurance and they don't have any personal wealth, it will be useless just to pursue this kind of a claim. And of course, frivolous lawsuits, I don't encounter them too often because I don't do defense. I'm sure the people that defend lawsuits encounter those frivolous lawsuits more commonly. In my situations, people will bring this up, and the easy way to tell them we cannot do that is, yes, it's possible to sue that person, but if you're willing to put down a retainer of $10,000 to cover the court costs, it will be possible to do that for you, even though it's not worthwhile for you to do that. We'll advise that it's not a good idea to do it, but people will say, no, but I want to punish the person. So if you're willing to spend money in advance in order to satisfy your need to punish the person, then I'm sure you'll find an attorney that will do it for you. At that point, usually people just drop the idea.
I've heard it called the sport of kings to sue people like that. Especially the frivolous lawsuit. You have to have the money to be able to do it in the first place.
Correct. And some attorneys unfortunately do that, because they count on the fact that the party that is being sued will be willing to pay nuisance money to avoid procedures of lawsuits, or to avoid the expenses of lawsuits. So unfortunately, this happens. It happens in labor law. It happens in some personal injury cases, in which the attorney that brings up the lawsuit counts on the fact that the other party will better settle and not go to court.
So interesting. Yeah. Wow.
And Eddie, when you do take on new clients, we're going to wrap this up soon. You do a free consultation. What is it normally, like a half an hour, 20 minutes when somebody approaches you?
Yes. So I don't keep track of time. I don't limit my clients on time. And of course, there's always exceptions. So it's not it's not endless situation. But in general, I let the client tell their story, explain what happened and what kind of a case they have, and I will give them my opinion of what I believe will be the best way to approach. So often it happens that I will tell them, this is not a personal injury situation, but you should consult a different attorney, which I will refer to a different attorney of that field. Or I will tell them there's a combination of we can cooperate with another type of law. Like, for example, there are always crossover cases between employment and personal injury. And as I mentioned before, between workers' compensation and personal injury. So those are those crossover cases. And sometimes I will tell clients that, unfortunately, it's not worthwhile for anyone to pursue this case. So the fact that let's say, give you an example, the fact that the manager in a motel was rude to you and the sheets were dirty when you were sleeping at them, and I understand it was upsetting to you, but it does not arise to a point of opening a claim or of course not filing a lawsuit. So
you haven't been approached about that, Eddie, have you? Is that a real situation?
Definitely getting calls like that.
Wow.
I woke up in the morning and the bed sheets were dirty, and had an emotional distress because of that. And approached the manager. The manager was dismissive and rude to me, and therefore I want to sue them. So I said it's a matter of customer service, and you better call the hotel or the motel, the management or the ownership, and try to settle it as a customer service issue, and it does not arise to litigious matter. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! It must be hard for you to keep a straight face sometimes when you're getting those inquiries.
Like daily basis, but it's part of our job, and we're trying to be always polite and explain to the clients, and tell them also they always have an option to consult other attorneys. So sometimes one attorney may think that there is no case, and other attorneys will tell them, there is a nuance here, and we can make money for you. So I actually had few of those cases when people came to me as a third consultation and be told earlier that there is no case, and I was able to settle their cases for a significant amount of money for them.
Oh, that's great. So it's not an absolute science, like you said, nuance. And
law is not a science.
Yes, that's right.
It's about anything, and it's all about the specific situation, and every case is different.
Eddie, before we get to the last question, okay, I'm from Canada and I don't know much about the California laws. If somebody comes to California and they do need a personal attorney like yourself, what is your biggest strength as a personal injury attorney, and why should somebody come to you?
So we'll start with the point of the biggest complaints of legal customers, meaning people that hire attorneys. If you do a quick search online and see what are the number one complaint of clients about attorneys, it will be lack of communication. So most of the people will be unhappy with their attorney because the attorney didn't explain to them what they're doing. The attorney never responds to them when they ask questions, or they don't get positive communication. So we are proud of ourselves on spending the time, meeting every client of ours, spending the required time to respond to their questions. If a client calls me and I'm not available, I will make sure to call them the same day or next day at the most. So this is a very important aspect, and something we're proud of. Second is that we bring a variety of experience in the field, and this experience makes a big difference in the way cases are handled, the way cases are settled, and final result for the clients.
And final question, And then I'll let Marlene chip in here too. Final question: do you have general advice for someone who's injured in an accident, either on foot or in a vehicle accident?
Yes. So there are a few rules of thumb, very important. Try to get, first of all, you need to make sure that there is a medical care to take care of your injury. So if you got injured, you need to call an ambulance, call police. You need to have the police to make a report. If there are serious injuries, you want the ambulance to someone from the paramedics to take care of you. All of those are urgent aspects. Otherwise, important to take photos of the scene, to take pictures, to have evidence of what happened, to try to get witnesses or information about any potential video cameras or dash cam cameras that someone may have in the area, and have those secured, or at least have names and phone numbers of some witnesses, and try to avoid talking too much to the other party or anyone else. So if there is a police involved, of course, answer honestly and truthfully to the police officer questions, but do not say anything to the other party. Your responsibility is to exchange information, which is driving license, insurance information, car registration, possibly phone number, but you preferably not to. You don't want anyone calling you before you consult an attorney. And if someone calls you before the attorney express her representation, you want to direct all questions to the attorney.
I'm going to let Marlene. Eddie, thank you so much. Marlene, I'm going to let you finish it off with a last question or comment for Eddie.
My only comment is thank you, Eddie. This has been fascinating, and we definitely need a part 2 or maybe an ongoing segment, because
thank you.
Just between Chris and I, we've got a million questions, and we didn't even get to any audience questions today because we took all the time and all the goodness for ourselves. So thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
I hope it was beneficial for all the listeners. And again, don't afraid to ask questions of attorneys. Most of the attorneys will provide initial legal advice, and it's better to ask a question and not make their own conclusion of what.
Absolutely. Hey, Eddie, and when you do write your book in the future, I'll definitely buy it. And my radio show is on in Canada and the States. So where can our audience follow you on social media, and what's the best way of somebody getting a hold of you on the internet?
So we have an email, of course, and which is edward@ebraunlaw.com, EDUARD@ebraunlaw.com. I'm on TikTok. I'm on. There's a Facebook. Again, ebraunlaw.com is the Facebook. I'm also posting various educational blogs and articles that can assist clients on various scenarios. And we also have Instagram page.
And LinkedIn page too.
And as well, yes.
I'll definitely be following you on social media, and if I have any more legal questions or whatever, I will definitely reach out to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eddie, for coming on. And Marlene, I want to say thank you to you for arranging this as well.
Chris. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, both of you.
All right, Eddie, have a great night, and I hope to get out to California one day.
Definitely. Reach out to me when you're here.
I will. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Marlene, final quick thoughts before we wrap this up.
Oh, wow. I could talk to Eddie all day. Well, as you know, we prepared a list of questions. We didn't get to all of them, and we didn't get to any audience questions either. So it would be wonderful to have a part 2 and maybe involve Eddie another attorney with a different area of specialization, or
employment lawyers, employment lawyer.
It's yes, employment, but there's so many different kinds of law that dovetail with what he's doing: employment, trust, and estate law, even criminal law, like the wrongful death cases that we were talking about. There's so much. So and California, I imagine, is a very unique place to practice law, and interesting if you like celebrity culture, especially, which admittedly I do. Even though I live here and I'm exposed to it every day, it never gets old for me. So I like to get Eddie's take on various high profile cases. It's fun.
And one thing I've learned, Marlene, doing this for 4 years now, is sometimes you can prepare questions, but when you start getting a conversation with your guest, you just get questions that pop into your head. And
Sure.
And to be honest, I used to think, oh, an hour, I don't think I can do this. But when you're having a great conversation with a great guest, and a good co-host helps, 1 hour flies. And I want to say thank you so much for getting some guests on here. And it's been really fun doing this with you so far. And yeah, hopefully I get to meet Eddie one day, but not with needing a lawyer that
yes,
way.
Right.
But
by choice rather than by unfortunate circumstance.
Absolutely. And give Blanchie a treat for me. She's been actually pretty good tonight.
She was. She started off a little feisty, but she's resting now. I think she used all her energy early in the show, and then she pooped out. Yay.
Definitely. So, well, Marlene, I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to say thank you to Eddie Braun for coming on, and yourself.
Thanks,
and I'm excited for episode 4 in April, and we'll figure out who our next guest will be. And I'm excited to work with you again in April. And again, thank you so much. And I will get out to California one of these days, even if I have to get on an airplane.
Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Thank you,
okay.
Chris.
All right. Well, you and Blanchie have a great evening, and we'll be in touch with you soon. And I'm going to do some video clips of our episode with Eddie as well, and you can post on your social media.
Perfect.
Okay. Have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Too.
Thanks,
care.
Marlene. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was season 2, episode 3 of the Small Talk podcast. Our guest tonight was Eddie Braun, a personal attorney, a personal injury attorney in the Los Angeles, California area, and my co-host Marlene Sharp, who is in California as well. And I want to say thank you to Marlene and Eddie for coming on. And as for Eddie, you can check out his website, ebraunlaw.com. And also you can email Eddie at edward@ebraunlaw.com, or you can give him a call at 818, area code 818-796-4529 as well. And I want to give a big shout out today to Jennifer from the Business Education and Partnership of Waterloo Region. Jennifer, I was out at a local high school in Kitchener today, and I got to speak to some local high school kids about my career in media and radio and my career change at the age of 47. And it was so great doing that. So again, I want to give a shout out to Jennifer from the Business Education and Partnership of Waterloo Region. And I look forward to going to some more high schools in the Kitchener-Waterloo area to speak with students as well. Before we wrap this show up, guys, the next Live with CDP Sports Talk by BarryCullen.com is going to be Thursday, March 21st, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, with special guest Brian Shanahan, National Lacrosse League analyst and 5-time Man Cup champion and Etobicoke Sports Hall of Famer in 2019. Brian is the older brother of former NHL Hall of Famer and Maple Leaf president Brendan Shanahan, and lacrosse is huge in his family. So me and Brian are going to talk about the 23-24 National Lacrosse League season, and also the Buffalo Bandits game against the Rock, where they came back and won 14-12 at the KeyBank Center as well. And I wrote a story on that. You can check it out at Live with CDP on WordPress.com and my social media pages as well. I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live stream today on Facebook, the Small Talk Facebook page, LinkedIn, YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Twitch, Twitter/X, and on Instagram, as well as audio platforms such as Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, etc. So season 2, episode 4 of the Small Talk podcast will take place in April. Guest to be announced, date and time to be announced, and I'm excited to work with my co-host Marlene Sharp on our 4th episode in April. Again, I want to say thank you to Eddie Braun, a personal injury attorney, and my co-host Marlene Sharp for coming on tonight. And I do have a comment before I go, and it's Facebook user. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but thank you for watching as well. I appreciate that. And that's about it, guys. I hope everybody has a great evening, and I'm looking forward to my next show tomorrow night, Thursday at 8 o'clock with Brian Shanahan. I hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for Live with CDP Sports Talk, and the Small Talk podcast will be back in April with Marlene Sharp and myself. Have a good night, everybody, and talk to you soon.